states are challenging those orders. Here to discuss the implications nationwide, our legal panel today, Lise Wheel, our Fox News legal analyst, and Bob Bianchi, criminal defense attorney and former head county prosecutor in Morris County, New Jersey. So is this one of those decisions that could swing liberal conservative on this court that is so often 5-4?
It definitely could, and don't forget, it's not just Texas on file, but 26 states total, as Shannon said. What the court could do, and sort of looking forward, I think there's a good chance they would do, is go make a decision on a procedural basis. In other words, what the state said was, A, yes, you go on, you superseded Congress, but the court could go with their other argument, which is a narrower argument, which is, and you didn't give us, Texas and other states, due process and time to what they called notes and comments, to be able to comment on a procedure and an executive order, because obviously it's going to have a huge financial impact on Texas and other states, and have to issue driver's license, etc. So the court could uphold the state's rights, but just very narrowly say on this due process element. Well,
Bob, you know, the state's argument essentially boils down to the fact that, you know, the colonists established our federal system of government because they didn't want a king. And President Obama has acted like a king in, you know, changing the law to suit his desires.
Yeah, the executive branch of government can execute laws and use its discretion in some regards, but it can't just do complete overreach. It's not an oligarchy. These laws were passed. He's obviously against those laws, and it's inappropriate to go so far as to essentially make those laws invisible or eradicate them. I think he's going to have a problem with this.
Of course, with the Obama administration coming back, is going to say, look, that's within our prosecutorial discretion, is what they're calling it. These executive orders are within our prosecutorial discretion, and that we can do that in the executive order. And by the way, the Supreme Court is taking this up because they want to overturn what has been done by the state level. That's what the Obama administration is going to argue.
But didn't the president himself say time and time again that he didn't have the power to do what he ultimately did?
Wasn't the president then?
Yeah, and you know, listen, I was an executive officer, I was a prosecutor, and while I used my discretion to decide which cases I was going to emphasize based on the crime needs of my particular county, I just can't wholesale disregard the legislature when they pass laws. I don't have the money for it, I don't have the resources for it, it's not a major issue, but you can't go so far as to completely disregard a law. What you need to do in the executive branch of government is that delicate balance between legislative and executive branch of government, is you need to go into the legislature and say, change the law. You just can't write executive orders to eradicate the law.
Of course, that does happen all the time, though. That's what executive orders, you know, in a part are there for. And of course, the new president coming in with one, you know, signage of a bill, or not bill, executive order, can say, see, I confused it already, right? It should be a bill. You could say that that the executive order that President Obama had is now null and void.
Hey, you could take basically any law passed by the legislature that you don't agree with, or the Congress, and you could say, I'm not going to enforce that. I don't agree with this. And then we have an oligarchy. We have a government set up by one singular individual who's making essentially legislative and executive decisions. There's going to be a problem with this. It went too far. So it's a question of balance.
Exactly.
Right? So in this one, too far.
But then you have 5 or 6 million people who are just left in the lurch, wondering what's going to happen, right?
Right. I mean, as by all told, exactly 5 or 6. It could be even more than that. They don't know. They're being stalled right now. The program has not gone forward, so they have not been deported. They are just waiting to find out what happens here. But again, I just think if this Supreme Court really wants to uphold states' rights, but not make a broad, overreaching opinion, they would go right with the due process and say, look, executive order, whether you could do it or not, you didn't go about it the right way. Notes and comments to the states.
Right. The Supreme Court, Lisa, loves to do that. They rather not go over into a whole global issue. They rather find a narrowly crafted way to throw it out.
They love procedure. Exactly.
All right. We'll see what happens. Keep our viewers updated. In the meantime, 4 men are suing the nation's biggest airline after they say they were kicked off a flight because of their appearance. We'll be back with our legal panel in just a moment to talk about the merits of their lawsuit.
Let's talk about some baseball. All-time hits leader Pete Rose